Hello and welcome to another episode of Scott Reads Comics. Today I'm going to cover Marvel Age #2, published in 1983 by Marvel Comics. We were so excited for Alpha Flight's release in the spring of 1983. We were pumped. We loved them in the X-Men. They had a smattering of appearances after the last Byrne X-Men appearance, 139 and 140. I think they showed up in Machine Man and maybe a few other titles. Marvel 2-in-1. I believe they were in a few issues of Marvel 2-in-1, which I would like to cover on the show at some point because there's some good issues that involve members of Alpha Flight. They never really showed up as a team, just segments of them here and there. I think Machine Man had North Star, Aurora, and Sasquatch. But this Marvel Age was our first real taste of what was to come in the Alpha Flight comic from John Byrne. And the first thing I want to focus on is just how cool this would have been if this was the cover. I do love the cover of Alpha Flight #1. This is my facsimile edition, which is an exact facsimile of what that book would have looked like with the exception of the price. And that's cool. I think I wonder if this cover was crafted by Byrne, not for Marvel Age #2, but for Alpha Flight #1, and was rejected by Jim Shooter because it didn't have any of the recognizable Marvel characters on it. And so he was forced to craft a different cover with, as you can see, a very similar layout in terms of the positioning of the various Alpha Flight members on the cover, right down to even Puck's running pose. Sort of the flying characters above, obviously, although he's changed the position of some of those. So yeah, it's just curious to see how these decisions are made. The yellow background obviously is the same. I love this cover. I think it would have been a better cover for Alpha Flight #1. This one's still great though. We're gonna put that aside. So yeah, so this is a super slim book, and I'm just gonna go through it and comment on really everything I see that interests me, and including the Alpha Flight interview. We'll talk a little bit about that. But at 25 cents, this was basically a loss leader for Marvel. It was a promotional organ, essentially. Marvel Age would grow in its pagination as the series went along. I think it went into the 50s or 60s, and maybe even beyond that in terms of the number of issues it went. But it came out reliably every month for 5 or 6 years. And it was a promotional organ for Marvel for their books. This is, of course, pre-internet, folks. So this is what we did. We used print promotions. And #1, anyone who's a regular watcher of the show knows I love house ads. And here we have 3 tremendous house ads, one after the other. I didn't know that. I must have blinked. The official handbook of the Marvel Universe. Everything there is to know about the Marvel Superstars, 12 issues, 32 pages each. So that was the first volume, which I'm not a fan of the omnibus format, but that Marvel Universe omnibus that collects those first 12 issues, and I think the 2 issues encompassing the Books of the Dead, and then the issue 15, which was the gear and equipment and vehicles and bases, that's a great omnibus to get. The backup material alone is worth the price of admission, showing some of the rejected sketches for characters, how they develop their process, things like that. Great omnibus. I'm definitely gonna give kudos to that one. Our next ad for Spider-Woman, one of my favorite titles of the late 70s, early 80s. One by one, the West Coast super people have disappeared. Who's next? Find out in Spider-Woman. So they were trying. Spider-Woman's sales were obviously flagging, but they were trying. And next up, the armor can protect him from anything but himself. The most startling Iron Man saga of all, on sale now. So this is a great Luke McDonnell drawn house ad. I should say this is Marie Severin here, I believe, with her excellent cartooning style. And this, I'm not sure who this is. This could be Brian Postman, who was drawing the Spider-Woman book toward the end when it got canceled. Great artist, I think recently passed away, sadly. But yeah, so this back to this Iron Man house ad, this would, of course, portend the second Demon in a Bottle, what I consider to be the definitive Demon in a Bottle saga, which I've covered the early parts of on the show. Need to get back to. I'll put it on my long list of things to get back to. So, title page here, we get a few excellent panels from what would be Alpha Flight number 1. Of course, we didn't know this at the time because this came out before Alpha Flight number 1. But really great to get these little previews here. Just look at this. I mean, John Byrne's so masterful in his command of all these characters and in comic book action. Just so good. Carol Kalish is the editor. Peter David, an assistant editor, would later go on to be a fantastic writer, long-term freelance writer for Marvel, had an epic run on Hulk. Leah Sapp is the designer. Danny Crespi, Ron Zalmi, production. Nancy Dodaro, Wendy Cooper Fitzgerald, typesetters. Rob Carosella, Harry Candelario, photostats. Harry Candelario would become a solid artist in the 90s. Stan Goldberg, Paul Becton, George Russo's colorist, Rick Parker, letterer, John Morelli, logo, Jim Shooter, guiding light. So we have Coming Attractions, Space Slammers. So this would become Star Slammers by Walt Simonson, a preview of that. Marvel News, the Alpha Flight feature article, Behind the Lines, so some editorials, and Life Among the Barbarians, detailing the triumphant return of Red Sonja and Call the Conqueror. And Conan, who never left, they say. Pretty fun. So here we have our coming attractions. Now, of the books pictured here, I bought that off the rack. I bought the G.I. Joe off the rack. I bought this Conan off the rack. Did not get this excellent Doctor Strange, which was penciled by Dan Green, but very cool. Let's see if there's any other highlights in here. New Mutants number 6. I recently covered 5 and 6 on my show. They're my 2 favorite issues of New Mutants. Really great. That Avengers issue 234 with the Scarlet Witch musing about her life and origins. That's a really good one. Deserves coverage on the show. Yeah, Power Man and Iron Fist covered in here. Kurt Busiek writing that, early Kurt Busiek stuff. Pencils by William Johnson, who had a cup of coffee with Marvel. I wish he would have done more, but I think maybe he got into advertising or something more lucrative. The Marvel Team Up, written by J.M. DeMatteis, pencils by Sal and Mike Esposito. That's Spider-Man and Mr. Fantastic. There's a ROM. This is getting toward the end of, well, ROM would go 75 issues, so this is 45. That's still with the Sal Buscema art run. He did a great work on that. Of course, FF257 is the Burns, it's just right in the middle of Burns' epic long run on that title. And then a bunch more previews here. And over here we have this Space Slammers feature with some cool cartooning here by Walt Simonson. Very cool. Marvel's new graphic novel, the Space... here they call it the Star Slammers. So it is Star Slammers, but here it's the Space Slammers. Interesting. Had its origins... So they're the Space Slammers is in reference to what Walt Simonson originally called it. So when they did it as a Marvel graphic novel, it was the Star Slammers. So that's pretty neat. I haven't seen this in a long time. Newswatch. Let's see if anything here. Look at this beautiful Bill Sienkiewicz Thor here. Really nice. Let's see. What else do we have here? Marvel will be producing an adaptation in super special format only of Octopussy, the new Roger Moore James Bond flick. The title is scheduled to be on sale in May. I wish I would have given the creative crew on that. It might have been Mike Vosberg and Carmine Infantino, but I'm not sure. Note on the official handbook. Let's see, what is this note? For those of you following the official handbook of the Marvel Universe, let's see. Since the handbook is supposed to be the definitive version of Marvel 1983, those of you who are alert enough are able to pick up on future plot developments. For example, Volume 1 depicted Kitty Pryde as Ariel. Okay, so they're just noting that the handbook would sometimes give stuff away that was a couple of months away in the regular titles. Here we have our Alpha Flight article with Patrick O'Neill. They just cover the basics. Let's see what, in John Byrne, let's see what he says about Sasquatch. Walter Lankowski, biochemist, biophysicist. He was a professor at McGill University in Quebec the first time we saw him. He has since moved back to British Columbia, which is the province he is from. He now teaches at Simon Fraser University. He got through college on a football scholarship and played professional football for a while. He got the way he is deliberately when he decided to see what would happen if the conditions to which Bruce Banner was exposed were done under more controlled circumstances. And Marvel Age interviewer asks, why isn't he green? He's orange because there was a particularly high sunspot activity at the time, so he picked up some cosmic rays as well. He got zapped by the Aurora Borealis, basically. So I don't think at this time Byrne had the idea that he would be one of the great beasts, which is what turned out to be revealed in issue 23, sadly. Here's another panel from Alpha Flight number 1, which recounts the events of X-Men 139 to 140, the fight with the Wendigos. Such an awesome Byrne-Austin collaboration artwork-wise on that. Here we go through some of the other characters. Puck, Eugene Judd, bouncer, a normal man in the sense that he doesn't have any superpowers, abnormal in that he's 3'6" and weighs about 200 pounds. So yeah, this was the idea, and I liked this version of Puck versus later versions where Bill Mantlo basically said that Puck was, harboring a sorcerer inside of him, and that's why he was suffering from dwarfism. And yeah, it was just, I don't know, I felt like it ruined Puck's mystique, that revelation. Here we've got Marina. Again, all panels from Alpha Flight number 1 here, brilliantly done by Byrne. And then we leave off the last page of the interview with just awesome shot of Sasquatch on the move here, really cool. And we have our Behind the Lines segment. So we got something from Ralph Macchio, from Larry Hama, from Denny O'Neil. Denny O'Neil's talking about Bizarre Adventures, the magazine. More Behind the Lines, Jim Shooter, Louise Jones, and Danny Fingeroth. These were the editors of the X titles at the time. Archie Goodwin and Joe Duffy get an editorial. Grunwald has a long one. Oh, here he's talking about the cancellation of Spider-Woman, which is sad. Sometimes the good guys lose. That's not only the title of an old S.H.I.E.L.D. story, it's also how I feel this month as we put the finishing touches on the last issue of Spider-Woman. Spider-Woman, the character, has been near and dear to me ever since I managed to snare the lady as my first writing assignment a few months after joining Marvel as an assistant editor back in '78. Sure, she had the same first name as a certain amazing web slinger who happens to be Marvel's single most popular character. But it wasn't like she was Spidey's cousin or anything. She was always very much her own character, and not only different from Spider-Man, but also different from the other Marvel heroes, at least as I saw her. So let's fast forward to the end here. The Spider-Woman book did not live in vain. Every Marvel title, no matter how marginal, has its rabid core of fanatic readers who stick with it through thin and thinner and are grateful for every issue there was. As for us, I think we can learn from our mistakes and come up with more solid, clearer characters that avoid our web lady's downfalls. In fact, I bet we could even come up with a Spider-Woman that works. Don't be surprised when we do. Well, sadly, Roger Stern, and I guess it must have been with the blessing of all editors and Grunwald in particular, I think he might have been the editor of Avengers at the time, depowered Spider-Woman and unceremoniously shuffled Jessica Drew off the stage in a couple of issues of Avengers, not too long after this, maybe a year after this is published. And that was a bummer because I love the Spider-Woman character. I love her costume. And I think what this editorial is getting at is she had an erratic, creative, it was just a rotating cast of writers. And so that led to an erratic character, not consistent. The art team wasn't always consistent, so that probably contributed to her downfall. Anyway, one of the only things I ever agreed with Brian Michael Bendis on in terms of the things that he was writing and doing at Marvel. He loved Spider-Woman too, and he brought her back to prominence, and I thank him for that. And let's move on here. So we have this Life Among the Barbarians. So we get awesome panels of, these are going to be those Baxter edition Call the Conqueror stories, drawn by John, so beautifully drawn by John Bolton here. Really awesome. We get some panels from there. We also get a brief panel from Red Sonja's series, which was short-lived, but I'm glad they at least tried it. And of course, they give her a sort of a sensible costume versus the stupid chainmail bikini. Here she is here again. And of course, we get another shot from the Conan color title, the regular size mag. House ad for US 1, which I never bought. I bought a lot of Marvel and DC comics in the 80s, but the trucking comic US 1 was not one that I bought into. US 1, high-powered adventure, coming at you this January. And we get a great house ad for King Call. Alan Zenowitz and John Buscema doing the artwork on it. Yeah, really beautiful. Love this. Awesome. So yeah, like I said, thin little book, thin little video, because not a ton to talk about. But I wanted to get this in there because I just love this little gem. It's been in my collection for a while. Of course, I bought it originally in 1983 and reacquired it not so long ago, maybe a couple of years ago, but I thought it would be fun to share, mainly to juxtapose the two Alpha Flight covers. And once again, renew my call for a collection of house ads, because why not? I'll do it every video if I can think of it. Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe. Tell your friends. I'll bring you more soon on Scott Reads Comics. Thanks for watching.